Hello, hello. Good morning. Welcome. Uh, so there's a plan later today to attend a bit of a shindig for a belated birthday, and I have decided to attempt to make ice cream cake. Now, I know I could do it if I had an unlimited amount of time. Uh, the issue is that it needs freezing. I really should have done this yesterday, uh, but here we are. Uh, So I need to get started because there's going to be some resting time. I've got some stuff to clean up. I can show off some new glassware and such, but we do need to get cracking on the old main event right away. We can deal with other stuff later. So not much pre-show. We're getting right into it. And you know what? I'm gonna get rid of that guy. Tweak our brightness a little bit. Okay, so this is I did this once before, and I didn't attempt to take the time to actually freeze it live. Uh, I've also started before my official start time. I should have started probably even earlier. We have sorry, I'm getting distracted. There's nobody even here to talk to, and I'm getting distracted. The we're going for standard no churn ice cream that I've done multiple times. I did it once before here on stream, and at that time I had Movie Magic uh, to pull out a quick already frozen one. No Movie Magic today. We're doing it for real. And if we're lucky, it will actually be frozen enough to assemble into a cake, and I'll have some in between time to work with. So we need quite a lot of heavy whipping cream, and my first bottle has been used partway, so I bought a second one just to be sure we'd have plenty. Sweetened condensed milk. This is just vanilla. Can't get far without vanilla. I asked for requests of flavor, and let's see if I got the right one here before I show it off. That's not the right one. I took requests for flavor on this, and one of the responses was raspberry. So fortunately, I've already got frozen raspberries. In my experience doing this before, frozen raspberries are much easier to work with than fresh for actually incorporating into the ice cream. Uh, they'll need to soften up a little bit though, so they're going to get out now. And the other request I had was for coffee. Um, and you know what? We can try that too. For coffee, I've got espresso, instant espresso, because I can't be dumping a whole bunch of hot liquid into this. Because that's not conducive to ice cream. And I honestly can't be dumping a whole bunch of cold liquid in either, because that's also not conducive to ice cream. Pardon me, I need to go to the other room for just a brief moment. This is the coffee I drink a lot of the time. It's a cold brew, and I could use that as the coffee base, but it's so much extra liquid that I think it would make the finished ice cream not set properly. And I'm hoping for 3 layers here, plus if we can pull it off, a crunchy layer, possibly 2 crunchy layers. Where did that bag of graham cracker bits go? I bought graham cracker bits for something. That's pancake mix. Oh, yeah, right there, front and center. Okay, we can try making a crunchy graham cracker layer as well. Fortunately, I can do that while stuff is freezing. I don't need to get it in between because we're not doing any mix-ins, so I don't need any except other than some raspberries. So we don't need any extra stuff at the start. Everything can be added as we go. And I've got some cake pans already in the freezer since last night. They are those little cheap foil ones, so they don't have a lot of thermal mass, but they are at least ice cold, which should help our cause. Let's move the gentleman. And you know what? If this doesn't work, I'll just have some differently flavored ice creams in strange discus shapes. We're going to need a bunch of bowls. I don't want steel bowls for the whisking phase. Actually, we could try using one of my newer bowls. I just picked this one up. It's a serving dish, but it's large enough that I could potentially whisk in it. Awkwardly, I'm taking a double recipe of the ice cream and making 3 batches out of it. So we're going to have some math. So, that being the case, I just don't have enough bowls for everything I want to do. Okay, the steel bowls are going to be our assembly bowls, I guess. Could do 3 of them. Okay, yeah, okay. So those are the bowls we're going to actually assemble the layers in. This one is going to be for whipping cream, which can be done without. I can do it in the same bowl 3 times, so that's okay. Because then we don't need to whisk it after we've added the cream. We just need to fold it together and get it into one of the freezer pans. So let's do that. Let's get started on the flavor. Divide these by 3. They conveniently come in 14 ounces. Is my sound on? Is my sound? Yeah, my sound's on. I couldn't see my mixer. Okay. All right. I said I was in a rush to get started, and I have thus far just faffed about, pulled out ingredients, and talked about bowls. That's a good way. It's a good way to get going. We're gonna open these. This is sweetened condensed milk. I never really respected this stuff before. It's literally milk with a bunch of sugar added to it. That is then reduced by removing the water to condense it. And it comes out this thick. You can see it's very thick. Consistency. And they come in, and I don't know why this is the standard, but it is the standard, and every recipe seems to be built around this as the standard. They come in a 14-ounce can, which is just annoying. So we're going to create 3, and this has been in my fridge. The cans have also been in my fridge so that this stuff could be cold as well. Make some room in there. They come in 14-ounce cans, and I need to divide that. Do I need to divide it exactly by 3? I don't think I need to divide it exactly by 3. I just need to approximate. Let's see how much this freaks the camera out. Not too bad. Ooh. Oh, it's so slow. Wow. That's maybe I shouldn't have pre-chilled the stuff. It's very slow. It's very thick at room temperature, and I decided to pre-chill this in an attempt to speed up the freezing in the next step, and I think I may have gone too far. It's actually going to be hard to incorporate when it's this thick, so maybe we should let it warm up a little bit. It wasn't in the freezer, because I figured it would be too thick to use if I stuck it in the freezer, but I did not consider that that would happen just in the fridge. And I'm just attempting to eyeball a same amount for each of these bowls. It does not need to be perfectly exact, but it should be pretty close. Each of these is going to end up being one of our differently flavored layers. And from past experience doing this, it's easier to add the flavor to the sweetened condensed milk than to either the finished concoction or to the whipped cream element. This, in its most basic form, this recipe for ice cream could be just 2 ingredients. If you didn't care about flavoring, you'd end up with a sweet cream ice cream that's just 2 ingredients. Sweetened condensed milk, which is itself just milk and sugar, and whipping cream, which is itself just the fatty part of milk. And I suppose air. Air is the 3rd ingredient, but you add that yourself and it's free. Because you already have air in your kitchen. I assume you have air in your kitchen. If you don't have air in your kitchen, I would suggest picking up some air and having air in your kitchen. Tell you what, sweetened condensed milk is very tasty. if a bit overly sticky. Okay, get these cans out of the way. And let's turn these guys into flavors. I'm going to start with this one because it's the least in the way. And let's see, our most basic flavor is vanilla, but I want vanilla to be the middle layer. Oops, I bumped the mic. All right, I got sticky fingers. Let's see. I'm going to follow the instructions here. One. This makes a single shot of espresso with a tablespoon. I'm going to make the coffee layer the bottom layer. So we want to do that one first. So that's what I'm going to do. This is going to be our coffee layer, and I'm going to, I guess I'm going to eyeball the, oops, that doesn't even fit. I guess I'm going to eyeball the finished product. I'm using a tablespoon of instant espresso powder to start with. We'll stir it in. We'll see what the color looks like. For an ingredient where the ingredient is both the coloring and the flavoring, that's an okay way to resolve this as to how much you need to add, because this isn't a essential oil concentrate like the vanilla extract or a lemon flavoring. Neither of those are essential oils, but there's not a flavor. This isn't a flavor concentrate. For flavor concentrates, you want to add like. Actually, I should pull that up. There's a guideline. Which I'm going to look up so as to not screw it up. And so it's 2 teaspoons of vanilla per, so it's like 1.5. But that stuff doesn't come with any coloring, so having it measured is a good idea. This stuff, the color and the flavor are the same thing. I could, theoretically. This doesn't look like it's dissolving a ton. Give this a tiny splash of just plain old cold brew to loosen it just a little bit and help dissolve those granules. Yeah, easier to stir already. So getting this to what looks like the right color, if you've ever had the flavor you're going for, that should be pretty easy to guesstimate. You can also taste it. If you taste it at this phase, it should be much sweeter than you're going for, and potentially much more strongly flavored with whatever your flavor is, because you're going to dilute this in a decent quantity of whipped cream. So let's looking about the color of coffee ice cream. I'm going to taste it. I think it needs more. Not a huge amount more, but it's a subtle coffee. And at this phase, I don't want subtle, because this is the concentrate. So I'm adding about another half to it. See if we can't boost that. Unfortunately, our friend Tiny Whisk is not going to be in attendance today, unless I do something else, simply because all of these things are too large today. I'm just gonna add more until I think it looks good. Whoa. Oh, thank you for the resub with Prime. And welcome in, Felix. Tiny Whisk did work out. Tiny Whisk is currently actually in my sink waiting to be washed because it, in fact, did get a workout off camera just yesterday. And then, as you know, we spent most of yesterday not doing dishes. So it remains. I didn't go in and do dishes quick this morning. We're developing a nice brown. I'm going to taste it again. That's a much stronger coffee flavor. That's good. I'm going to add just a little bit more because we're going to dilute it into a bunch of whipped cream. We're going to lose our whisk into our mixture. But our coffee flavor base, I think, is coming together. I should do a quick here. I'm going to do a quick ask of Google. How much does Google think I should add of this stuff? Nope, don't do that. This one says 3 tablespoons, although the recipe is a larger recipe. I think we've got around 2 in here, and this is a 2/3 of a normal recipe. I'm going to go ahead and say that that is fine. Okay, should I add a dash of vanilla? Such a question. Do I add a dash of vanilla? I have to get a better clamp for that thing. Should I add a dash of vanilla to this coffee ice cream base? Or is there some other element that would be more complementary? I'm going to add just a tiny dash Get it all well incorporated. Okay. Now we've got a quick math. The math is so it's 4 cups divided into 3 batches. So 1 1/3 cups each. Blue Whisk has done his job and needs to be retired from this nonsense. I'm gonna taste right off the whisk. Mmm. That ain't bad. Just by itself, it's not a very strong coffee flavor. I will say that, but it is a coffee flavor. It's not a very strong coffee flavor. That's what concerns me. Because once you freeze something, the flavor becomes even less prominent. So what we need is 2 of these, because this is a 2/3 cup measure, and we need 4/3 of a cup in each of these batches. Which is exactly how much was left in here, I guess. Huh. Fancy. We'll set that aside. We definitely need that again in the near future. Good thing I bought a bunch of extra whipping cream. I don't want to do this by hand. Since I'm doing 3 of them, and we already have some time constraints, we're getting out the old power mixer here. And we're going to do whipped cream with the power of modern science. Which is why I need the glass bowl, because this would scratch up any steel bowl I tried to use it with. I've once made the mistake of using metal whisks to do meringue in a steel bowl, and it scratched up the bowl, but it also abraded the end of the whisks to the point where one of them is rusty. Fortunately, it was not Tiny Whisk. It was one of the larger whisks, but the outer plating was worn through. And I guess in the middle was just ordinary steel. So I just saw my chat twitch. My Twitch chat twitched. I actually think doing this by hand uses less energy than doing this with the power mixer, just because the whisk is more able to get in and foam up the milk. But the energy in this case is coming from my wall outlet, and when I do it with the hand whisk, it's coming from my arm. That's the key difference. I also had luck doing this once in a mini blender. And I bet you could do it pretty effectively in a high-speed blender with a removable blade. For the blenders with the blade that's just in the bottom, this would be very difficult to get out. But I had a mini blender where the blade popped out. And that was very effective because I could just jam a high speed blend on the cream, and it pretty easily turns to whipped cream. And we are going for as stiff of a peaks as we can get. Because that will lend more structure to our finished ice cream. For which the power mixer helps a lot. Getting soft peaks is pretty easy with the hand whisk. Getting stiff peaks is something you really want the electric, the power of modern science. If you're doing this in a stand mixer, which would be the easiest way, but also the most expensive way, be sure to stop. That is stiff peaks. Be sure to stop at about this stage to avoid turning it into butter, because that'll happen. Keep whipping your cream, and it will just turn to butter. We're not going to bother washing these off because we're going to do this 2 more times, but I'd like to knock the worst of it out of there. And then these guys have to get back in there. Come on. There you go. I can't see the slot. Come on. There we go. Okay. And then we'll just set that aside. Set the extra parts tray aside because it's just in my way now. And these things need to be combined and frozen, and that is how you make the basic ice cream. I need a spatula. And I think I can just take it right out of there. And then I'm folding in part of it. We're doing a fold. Here, let me switch sides here. We're doing a fold because there's air now in the whipped cream that I don't want to knock out, because the ingredients, the three ingredients that make an ice cream are sugar, fat, and sugar. So milk, it's usually milk sugar, but it's also just cane sugar, sweetened sugar, milk fat, and air. Air is the secret ingredient that gives you that ice creamy texture. Good thing I have 4 of these whisks, or these spatulas, because we're definitely going to use 4 of them today. I don't want to dip that back in there at the moment. So I just need one that's dedicated only to the cream. So I added a small amount of the whipped cream to help loosen up the base before I add the bulk of it, because it'll help me not have to agitate it as much, and thus not knock as much of the air out. You're always going to knock some of the air out, but the goal here is to get this incorporated without beating the hell out of it. I have in the past run the whisk through this again, and I think that actually does work to a degree. The sweetened condensed milk won't hold air as well as the whipped cream will. But once you've got it blended and there's some air already in there, I think using the whisk to get your finished mix can be an effective solution, because it will help push some air back in as it's even knocking some out. Whereas this thing, a flat spatula, which is why I'm stirring gently, will only knock air out of the mix. It will never be able to incorporate new air into it. You know what I want? You know what I want to do? You know what I want to do is a mix in of more espresso granules. So there's little bits. I suppose they'll dissolve instead of making little bits, but if we're lucky, there'll be some little speckles in there. Okay, that's looking homogeneous enough. I'm not going to bother making it completely homogeneous. And then we're going to get out one of our frozen cake rounds. They're so thin that they're going to warm up almost instantly, but we're going to hope that they are, because they are small and thin, these things will have a chance to freeze before the full amount of time, at least enough to work with them. This is where our battle with physics is going to come in. Fortunately, it's very easy to level. You just have to kind of jiggle it down. Let's see. Another problem is that my freezer is a teensy bit crowded. But let's get this guy out of here. He's very liquidy. He just needs time. It'll definitely turn to ice cream if given enough time. The issue is, do we have enough time? Okay, layer 1 is in the books. This may be a case of having to call it at some point and revisit. If none of these set up enough to work with before the end, or I'll make something else. Mm. Mm. Ooh. It tastes good. Bare minimum, if this never comes together, we'll have 3 discuses of ice cream. So we can play ice cream disc golf or something. Part 2, the glass one. This one's much easier because, actually, scratch that. I am declaring an audible on the flavor. I'm declaring an audible on the flavor. We're not going to make it plain vanilla. I was going to say, because we got a fruit flavor and a coffee flavor, and they're not. When I asked for flavor requests, the first 2 that were thrown out were green apple and coffee, and I could probably make those work, but that would be a tricky one. And we got that amended to raspberry. And I was going to use vanilla as a bridge because vanilla is a nice neutral bridge flavor between other things. But screw it. Almond. Sweet almond is one of my favorite flavors. I love this stuff. If you've had amaretto, that's this flavor. I think it is criminally underused flavor. It's also a pretty strong flavor, so we're going to add a 1 teaspoon of almond to this. Stir it in. Taste it. And then, if need be, throw up our hands in disgust because we've added too much already. A teaspoon should not be entirely overwhelming, but who knows? It's a pretty punchy flavor. I love it personally. You can see that there's liquid forming now around the edges of my sweetened condensed milk, and it's also much softer because it's been sitting out. But that liquid that's around the edges is a little bit of the surface of the sweetened condensed milk dissolving into the flavor, the liquid that's in the flavor concentrate. If you see that, it means you're not going to have an even flavor. You're going to have a little pool of flavor. Okay, taste. That just tastes like sweetened condensed milk to me, so I'm going to add more of my almond flavor. Let's taste by itself. Oh, it burns. Oh, it actually, like, ugh. Okay, don't do that. Much like vanilla concentrate, don't taste it straight. It smells nice, but boy howdy, it does not do nice things to the mouth. Uh, Taste. Nicer, closer. Surprised at how this is not coming through super strongly. The same quantity of vanilla, this would be like overpoweringly vanilla. I'm adding a little bit of vanilla to this. I think it'll help wake it up. And it'll give it a little bit of color because vanilla is nice and brown. And the almond extract is completely crystal clear. I don't have almond bits. I do have almond flavor syrup. That's the weird thing. I don't really like almond the nut. I mean, I don't hate them, but it's not my favorite. But this sweet almond flavor, this amaretto flavor, is one of my absolute favorites. If the nuts tasted like this, I would go nuts for them. Pun intended. Taste. Okay, I think that'll work. I think once that's diluted into the whipped cream, that will be a good mix. And now we're going back to the cream. It was inevitable because it's literally what we're making today. Get my measuring scoop back out. Measure out another quantity, 4/3 of a cup. I've heard that in many parts, basic dairy items have become unreasonably expensive. I am fortunate enough to live in the dairyest place in all of America. So although prices have gone up, they have not shot up like I have been hearing has occurred in other jurisdictions. So I'm still able to afford quite a large quantity of cream. Oh, sorry. Forgot to warn you, we're doing the old power whisk again. I'm gonna turn the speed up, see if I can't get it to go faster this time. One of the fun things about this is that essentially I'm just holding. I'm guiding it a little bit, but the spin of the blades naturally kind of knocks the head of the mixer around. And if you ensure that it knocks against the sides of the bowl, it naturally pushes itself in a circle, which helps take some of the strain off. Oh. Yeah, it's definitely loud for me because I start talking loud. Well, I suppose I can just talk normally, see if that works. A higher speed was definitely advisable. It's whisking up faster. Oh, we went a little bit harder on that one. I can't get these guys off here. Yes. I've not taken the time to listen back to any of the times I've used the power mixer on the show. But yes, I talk louder because I can hear it quite a lot. It drowns my own voice out for myself. But interesting to know that it doesn't show up at all. I guess it's not a noise gating thing because it's definitely loud. It's probably just that it's smart enough to realize that that's not a sound that it should be picking up. It's just a noise sound because there's other sounds in the room here that it's not picking up. Like my refrigerator's humming right now, and I'm standing like less than a foot from it. But I imagine you can't hear that either, which is good for the integrity of the show. Okay, put this guy in the main. Oh, okay, you can hear it, but it's not loud. Interesting. I wonder what the science behind that is in terms of the little mic pickup. And I wonder how that would change in the event that I do manage to get a hold of a decent lavalier, which is a ongoing goal for theoretically improving the channel. This bowl is noticeably smaller than the other one. Get that in there. Fresh whipped cream. I don't need to move that bowl there. That bowl can just live on the side. Fresh whipped cream is one of the kitchen's great pleasures. If all you've ever had is whipped cream from the spray can, you're missing out. The real stuff, the real thing, whipped from fresh cream. Ooh, it's just so nice. Okay, this is going to be harder to see when it's fully incorporated because my base was not colored at all. I don't want my base to be colored. I want this to be a nice white layer. But to be careful, because I can see as I dig down, there's a little streak that still comes to the top. So there's still a pool of unmixed flavor material at the bottom that needs to come up and be incorporated. If I was smarter about this and had a lot more bowls, I would be adding the a small quantity of the whipped cream to the flavor, and then pouring that back into the whipped cream. Because once it's been loosened and lightened a bit, it won't immediately deflate all the rest of the whipped cream just by being poured over the top. If you pour a dense liquid over the top of whipped cream, it will crush the foam underneath it. But this is looking pretty good. I'm not seeing any more streaks. My spatula rests neatly atop it. Oh, boy. Another issue is that my freezer is crowded. Here, hang on to this pizza for me. And this bacon. Maybe I'll have to eat something from the freezer in order to make room. I checked on our coffee layer, and it's very liquidy, very liquidious. Now, this stuff is supposed to take 4 hours to harden to edible ice cream. Now, I know it's not going to take that long to get to the level where I can work with it. It just needs to be set enough to get to shape. Like I kind of want it to be a little bit flexible so I can get it out of these pans. That's so nice. But I don't know how long it's going to take, and it might be just too long. Okay. Also, I don't have a lot of flat surfaces for this. Huh. I need to do a quick problem solving. There's no camera pointed at this, so I can't show you what I'm doing. I'm attempting to use a sheet pan over the top of the previous tray of coffee flavor to make a flat surface. Oh, the sheet pan's not wide enough. To make a flat surface upon which I can put the next layer. Will a rack work? There's enough vertical height. It's horizontal height that I'm having a struggle with. Okay. Get this guy in there without spilling him or spilling the one underneath him. Okay, and then I can put things on the other end of the rack. To help stabilize it. And also to give those things a place to live while this is happening. Okay. That's a jury-rigged solution. I see you've said something about noise gating. I'll be over in a sec to do a learn. Oh, that doesn't close. You there, you there, you there. Close. It closed. Oh my god. Analog signals. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have any sort of mixer software running. I just have whatever onboard is in my headset, and then the built-in mixer that comes with OBS, which is not the greatest mixer in the world. It's just a tribute. Oh, that needs to also be. Well, no, I can layer that up. Haha! Problem solving. I'm gonna have to take a picture of this nonsense. Oh no, you don't fit because of the frozen berries. Oh. So the lesson here is that I need to use up stuff from the freezer soon. Okay. That was an adventure that nobody got to see. Such riveting viewing, shuffling through my freezer. You can barely even see the freezer. I should have switched to the main cam just so you could at least see a little bit of what was going on. But I didn't think that was going to take that long. Flavor 3. Flavor 3 is red raspberry, which I also love. This was a special request flavor. And this one is both easy and a little bit harder to pull off. You can just use frozen berries. They've been sitting on the counter now since we started. So they're partially softened, which is good, because when they're completely rock frozen, they are hard to work with. Fresh raspberries, by contrast, aren't great for this application. They're juicy, but they also still have a lot of their integrity. Freezing fruit pre-softens it to a pretty significant degree, which is what we need here because we want these to break down so that we can incorporate them in. But raspberry is a strong enough flavor that for the most part, you don't need to use concentrates or essential oils or flavorings to amp it up. It can just be literally frozen raspberries mixed into your sweetened condensed milk. Some fruits don't have a strong enough flavor to come through if all you use is the fruit itself. Remembering that whenever you serve something frozen cold, the flavors are muted. The early proposal of green apple, for example, I would not have been able to just dice up apples and throw them in there. I would have had to use a apple flavor concentrate in order to pull that off. But for raspberry, just some fruit. Just some fruit's all you need. If it's completely rock hard frozen, it's hard to work with. But it doesn't take that long to thaw out. So as long as you give it a few minutes, ours has been sitting out for approximately an hour because this is how long it's taken me to get this far, which is an embarrassment. Let's just see how that looks when I get them all mixed in. This isn't quite the same as if I was doing a chunky mix-in. If I was doing a chunky mix-in, I would want to probably partially freeze it, freeze the finished ice cream, and then add the mix-in, and then continue freezing it. So that the bigger chunks would be neatly suspended in the ice cream. That's how you do it in a mixer, in like an automatic thingy. And that's how I would do it here if I was doing a chunky mix-in. But you really don't want big chunks of raspberry or any fruit in your ice cream. Because once you've frozen it, fresh fruit has a lot of water in it, and that water turns to ice. So you don't end up with nice pieces of fruit. You end up with big chunks of vaguely fruit-flavored ice floating around in your ice cream. You want pretty much just the juice and maybe little tiny bits to remind eaters of what it is that they're eating. I have so little of this left. I'm going to add all of my remaining raspberries and make this maximum raspberry, which isn't even that much extra. But it's not worth saving, and that means I don't have to put it back into my freezer, which, as we've discussed this moment ago, is a tad crowded. I think frozen raspberries are, unless you really want to eat fresh raspberries, I wouldn't recommend just eating frozen raspberries. But for most recipes that I would use raspberry in as an ingredient, frozen raspberries are excellent. Which is the case with quite a few frozen fruits. I feel the same about blueberries. I almost never get fresh blueberries unless they're like farmer's market fresh blueberries. But frozen ones, I'll pick up a pack of frozen blueberries, and then you can use them in all sorts of recipes. I tell you what, for this last one, because we're not going to have to use the whipped cream bowl again, I'll show you the way that I would have done this if I had enough extra bowls. That'll be a good instructional. This whole no churn ice cream thing is frankly stupid easy. All it takes is time. It takes more time waiting around freezing than your standard ice cream that's churned. But you don't have to run a churn while it's happening. You just forget about it. You stick it in your freezer and you come back later and there's ice cream. And the only downside that I can figure out is that it's less stable, which is a concern because I'm trying to make a cake. And that did occur to me. It's less stable and it tends to melt more quickly once you unfreeze it, which is what the eggs do in regular, like custard-based ice creams. They provide a stabilizer. The protein provides a stabilizer. Why did I leave that in there when I did that? That was foolish. Okay, last batch of cream. I find it hard to talk. Not just that I have to talk louder. I just find it hard to talk in general while I have this extra noise. And considering it's not super loud on your end, that probably makes for dull viewing. So we're whipping cream for a third time. Whipped cream is literally just an emulsion of air and fat and water. It uses fat as the binding agent rather than protein, which is what happens in whipped eggs. Which means it's more stable when cold, and it will actually melt when heated. Whereas egg is stabilized with protein. Good. Whereas egg is stabilized with protein, and when you heat the proteins, they harden, which is how you can make a meringue. This stuff, basically, what we're doing, because the fat in whipped cream, is milk fat, the same fat that butter is composed of. We're essentially knocking tiny, tiny, tiny particles of butter out of the cream and using them to create this airy foam. And if you heat it, the butter melts because that's what butter does when you heat it. And then it can't hold the air anymore, and it just turns back into cream, vaguely beaten cream, except not fully, because we've knocked those little droplets of butter fat out of our cream. So it won't go back to just cream. It'll be this like vaguely, it'll be liquidy, but it won't have the same texture because there's little droplets of fat in there that have been freed from the natural emulsion of milk. Natural emulsion is created by the critter that created the milk, because milk's supposed to carry fats and a bunch of dissolved stuff in liquid form for the baby to eat. So we've added a good quantity, around about a third of our whipped cream into our flavored sweetened condensed milk mixture, and I'm folding it in until it's nice and smooth, just like I've done the past two. The goal of this step is to lighten up the sweetened condensed milk because it's a very dense, very, very dense liquid. And if I dump it on top of the other whipped cream, it'll make it deflate. Now, in the previous batches, I added the whipped cream then into this because I wanted to reuse the big bowl for more clean whipped cream. For this one, since it is our last one, I'm going to show you the method for doing this when you're just doing one, and that is to add it back. Because our deflated, it's better to not move the whipped cream if you can get away with it, because every time you move it, you lose a little bit of air. And it is, of course, the air, most of all, that gives ice cream that ice cream texture. If you just take the ingredients of ice cream and stick them in a bowl and stick them in the freezer, you end up with a block of ice. It's the air that we work into it, and that's why a powered ice cream mixer spins and spins and spins while it's cooling so that it can trap air bubbles in between the ice, and also so that the ice crystals stay very, very small. And that's what all the work I'm doing, all the work our friend, the hand mixer, is doing, is pushing air, tiny, tiny bubbles of air, into our mixture so that when it freezes, there are tiny, tiny bubbles of air in the final ice cream, giving it that nice, smooth, ice creamy texture. Pouring the flavor mix over the top of whipped cream also helps with the problem. I don't know if you noticed it. I noticed it on the espresso one, and I noticed it on the almond one, although it was very hard to see. I would dig down to the middle, and then I'd get this streak that would come up, even though it looked like everything else was nicely mixed. Because that sticky sweetened condensed milk was sitting at the bottom and resisting getting lifted into the whipped cream mixture. Whereas if it's added to the whipped cream is already at the bottom, preventing that little sticky pool from forming for a nice even mix. Again, I'm making a lot more here than I would typically, because this is meant to be shared. For myself, I would make just one batch. And this one, I believe, has wound up with a greater volume, probably because I did the methodology correctly and poured it the other way around. We've very filled up our tray this time, which is nice because this one can then be the top piece. As long as I don't pour it out trying to get it into the freezer. Nice. Okay. Lick my spatula. I'm going to lick my spatula. Okay, well, something occurs to me. It's an hour to noon, which is going to be the time when I am going to call it quits. And those things are not going to be frozen enough in an hour to assemble, for sure. That top one, 100%. So, I've just spent an hour and a half making ice creams that we're not going to get to see the final product of until later. Maybe I'll do an impromptu later on show. I'm going to finish off today by making myself something to eat for breakfast. 'Cause a couple of licks of ice cream is not enough. I'm also gonna. So I was gonna frost it with a buttercream, and I had the idea of. So I've got these graham cracker crumb that I used to make the base of a cheesecake, I believe. And you can use a similar method to that to make a little crumbly crunchies. If you've ever had a Dairy Queen ice cream cake, they've got these little crunchies inside of them. There's a way to make those. It's not just a matter of dumping these into your ice cream because these will go soggy. Because you got to add them at a point when the ice cream is still partially softened. Otherwise, they'll just roll around. And what you do is you mix this with butter and then you bake it. You mix this with melted butter and then you bake it hard. But instead of making a shell for a pie out of it, you just make little crumblies. But if I make a buttercream now, it's just going to sit around. So that doesn't make any sense. So I gotta clean up. I hate to end on an anticlimax because I just can't see that ice cream is going to be done in time, which was the danger. I was challenging physics itself doing this. I'll go silent because I'm counting along as I do that. I was challenging physics itself with my little home freezer, and physics has won. That there is like the bottom one when I put the top one in was still jiggling, and if it's jiggling, you can't work with it. We have basically no chance of these being done in time, which was the risk. If you're interested, and we could put together a funding campaign, maybe, to buy me a commercial blast freezer, that'd get those guys frozen up in 30 minutes flat. And it would make for a much smoother ice cream product at the end because the ice crystals would be extra tiny. I keep looking at myself. I need to commit to either getting hair back or just giving up on it. Because this corona of floof that I've developed is not super great. I'm taking this time to chit-chat, although I just was silent because I was sharpening knives because that takes some concentration to avoid cutting your hand. I don't know how the chefs do it. I'm currently putting away, because I had a bunch of dishes over here, so I'm putting away stuff while I think. This is stuff that I normally would have done in the pre-show phase when I've got the pink card up that says pre-prep. Oftentimes what I'm doing is wiping down the counters, putting out my go live messages, and putting away dishes because I have a bad habit, and you can here I'll kink it down so you can see them. I have a bad habit of stacking up clean dishes over here. You can see all the dirty stuff from today surrounding the sink, but I have a bad habit of stacking up my clean dishes over here and then not putting them away. But then when I'm doing the show, I put them all away real quick just before I start. Which I suppose has been helpful. It's been good to kind of give me that kick to just do it instead of using my clean dishes off the drying area. Here's all my ice cube trays. They got removed last night from the freezer in order to make room for this nonsense. I suppose they're all empty. They can just go back in. Just so that they're in at least the right part of the kitchen. There's my mortar and pestle. Oh, there's little bits of whipped cream all over the place. I will have to clean that up post haste, or I lose track of them. Pardon, I must clean. Can't believe 5 people are watching me. You can't even see what I'm doing right now. But welcome in, everyone. I've made the decision that we have lost our battle against the laws of physics. If you're just arriving, we have lost our battle against the laws of physics, and the layers of ice cream are not going to be frozen in time for us to assemble them before the end of the show. I kind of want to show you this nonsense I've got in my freezer. Let's see if I can't figure out a camera angle on it. Bonus cam. Okay, camera's got power. Everything's dark right now. Don't worry, I did that. I shouldn't be doing this live. What is this? Is it this one? Get rid of that one. Oh, this is awkward. Doing this live means that you get to see a lot of darkness while I fumble about. Is it this one? Why are none of these coming up as a thing? Nope, that's just OBS. Hold on. It's got to be that one. Why are you not doing this? Technology, please. This shouldn't be this hard. Let's try pulling that, putting it there. No, that's not working either. Come on, OBS. I know you can do this. I've literally done this before, but this time it doesn't want to. That one's all dark. Haha! I found it. Here we are. There's you guys. So I wanted to do. I don't know why this was so much effort. I wanted to show this nonsense. There they are. There they are. Living in the freezer, above my mussels, next to all my okra. That was far too much effort for far too little payoff. But now it's ready to go, and in the future I can just point it at things. Anyways, they're still very liquidious in there, which is a problem because they're supposed to be ice creams. Teeny tiny ice creams. Actually, they're very large ice creams. So, I have time to make a quick breakfast or even a quick lunch for myself, need be, but we're not going to be able to pull off that finished product yet this morning, unfortunately. God, I hope that wasn't too awful, me fumbling around with an extra camera for 5 minutes. Let me show off some of my stuff while I'm here. Or, you know, you guys, chit-chat, talk to me. I know we're... Oops. Oh, shit. How did that happen? Oh, I see how that happened. One of my camera wires came loose. Almost got pulled off the wall by my cabinet door. I'm delivering a terrible anticlimax today. And worse than that, I'm literally killing time and doing kitchen cleanup on camera. Or not even fully on camera. Slightly off the edges of the camera where no one can see it. Let's use that one. So I showed it off briefly. Here's one of my recent acquisitions. I got this thing for $1. It's a... I'm not sure what it is. It's one of these. It's a giant version of one of these, which is a sake glass. So it's a giant sake glass. So there we go. Maybe I should have a drink. 15 minutes. That's good. I guess got up a lot earlier than that. I got up at 8:45. I should have gotten up even earlier. because then I could have gotten started at this and people could have been coming in at this stage while I was assembling, and that would have been cool. Instead of coming in at this stage and hearing me saying, well, we're not assembling because it's not going to be frozen in time. Here's my cheese slicer. This has not found a home in my kitchen yet. It's been put away in a different place every time I've used it. And I have used it pretty regularly, so it's been traveling around a lot. But I'm clearing up some dishes, and then I'm going to take a moment to show off my recent Goodwill find. This was one of them. This also does not yet have a home. It just lives on the countertop at the moment, because it's literally only had time to be washed. I need another shelf, I think. But there was some kind of clearance on glassware at the Goodwill, at my local Goodwill. Because I found a set of, here's the set, a set of 4, they're just small drinking glasses. I thought they might be crystal, but I've done some research and they're just thin glass. They're in good shape. A set of 4 of these for $1. Not $1 each, $1 for the 4 of them. Likewise, a set of 4 champagne flues. Again, $1 for the set. And they're in even better shape. This one's got a little smudge on it that I didn't notice until just now. But I should be able to get that off with a little bit of elbow grease because it's glass. Again, surprised to see them, not mad about it. And here's the actual find, the best one. These guys. Your classic, like, beer flute. We got 6 of these, again, for $1. I got 14 pieces of quality glassware for $3. I can't even hold them all. I don't know why I always avoided Goodwill in the past. Once upon a time, I actually was like, I don't want to go to Goodwill. They don't have good stuff at Goodwill. Turns out, they have good stuff at Goodwill. I've become a thrifter. And that glassware doesn't have homes in my kitchen because it hasn't been here long enough to find homes. Honestly, I need a shelf. I need a shelving place to put it all. So that's all tidied up, aside from the aforementioned glassware that does not have a home. Let's make a quick meal for myself, and then I will move to wrap on today's festivities. Since, well, let me take a quick peek at our ice cream. Well, it's definitely not going to be ready soon, but it's not going to be as long as I thought. The top one, the last one we put in, it's still flexible, and it's got a tiny bit of a jiggle, but it doesn't have a lot of jiggle, and it's not liquidy. The bottom one is still, the coffee one is still liquidy enough to come off on my finger. I feel like maybe the acid in the coffee is throwing it off. Although there's a lot of acid in, ooh, that's a very coffee flavor. Wow. Mmm. Ooh. Ooh. Well, at the very least, we have a nice coffee, espresso flavored ice cream. What do I want to eat? What do I have to eat? Not a huge amount of stuff. Got a lot of frozens that I've been mentioning I should be eating because there's a lot of them. They're also forming some. Ooh! You'll remember this stuff. Back to the countertop. You'll remember this stuff. These are my homemade sweet potato gnocchi. Get my color corrector back in place. Just enough left for one serving. Let's make those. And while they're getting rolling, I can think about a fun topping for them. I should change my title so people don't come in expecting ice cream cake. Because the constraints of the laws of physics are preventing me from making ice cream cake. Damn physics. What's a good... Let's go with low-fat sauce, because I just put a ton of cream in my freezer. I know exactly what I'm going to do. This is not going to be breakfasty. I'm going to change my title. Title changed. But I know what I'm going to make. We'll talk through it as we do it. Good morning, Saizan. Welcome in. I can point the I suppose not to out anyone, but you two well, you were here ages last night. Surprised you're up this early. So we're not going to need the countertop really. So let's switch over here. Ooh, I never did the brightness corrections on this camera because I was fully not expecting to use it. But here we are. I've got some water on the boil with salt in it. Water on the heat with salt in it, coming up to a boil. Extra virgin olive oil. We are going to make one of my favorite easy pasta sauces, and there's only going to be some slight minor modifications to deal with the fact that I think my parsley has gone all wilty. Yeah, it's wilty, but it's not gross. So I'm going to use it, and then there's probably going to be the end of that. This is my midnight pasta mix. I'm just going to get out all of my ingredients. Parsley, pasta, in this case, leftover sweet potato gnocchi. Anchovy. My anchovies have solidified because they are packed in olive oil. Capers. Black pepper. Garlic. I don't have, or do I? No, I don't have a shallot. extra virgin olive oil. I also don't currently have red pepper flake because I've used them all, and then I transferred over to using the whole chilies. So I guess we'll use a whole Thai chili slash what is probably a cayenne, but a small one. The oil needs to be on the heat. We need our garlic grater and a cutting board. And I suppose a knife. First up, garlic. There's a lot of flavors, but there's not a lot of overall volume to this sauce. So garlic at your own discretion, but don't go wildly overboard or it'll just taste like garlic. I didn't even get out a kitchen scraps bowl today because I wasn't expecting any scraps. But, you know, some people absolutely love extra garlic. Countertop. We're going to grate the garlic first, and then we're going to pull out the anchovies, mince them up with the red pepper, throw that in our oil to start. The anchovies take the longest time to soften. I do love extra garlic, but I don't want the dish to just taste of garlic. That's where I'm cautioning at least a little bit of moderation. 3 cloves is a lot of garlic for this quantity of pasta. I should have used my little rubber tube for this. It would have sped everything up. A bowl to capture my garlic. Even though the garlic is not the first ingredient going in the pan, the garlic is the first ingredient being prepped because it will develop its garlicky flavor while it sits here and rests. This is one of those recipes that I never thought I really would show off on the channel here because it is very fast and quick. Unless I were to take a day to make my own pasta, then that would be the bulk of it, and then the sauce would be something fast and quick. Just throw over the top of it. The problem I keep bumping into is things that I like to cook often don't take very much time. And since I am not yet up to scratch on editing video, although I should just start editing videos and publishing them just as practice, that would be a good idea. Just as practice, and assume that the first several are going to just be terrible. Our water's boiling. Take our frozen gnocchi boys, throw them in there. I should make gnocchi again. Now that I've used up the last of that batch, which is a good thing, clearing out the freezer. Gonna mince up our pepper, seeds and all. But not the stem. Little goes a long way. We don't need a lot of pepper. Get that in our pan. It's already bubbling. I think that's probably a scooch too hot. This is going to be awkward because the oil has fully solidified. But there are, believe it or not, there are anchovies down in there. You just have to dig deep and believe and kind of look at the sides, and you will fish up a delicious, salty treat. There they are. A couple of anchovies. Bam. You could make this recipe without the anchovies. They are the only meat element in it, the only animal element in it, aside from some Parmesan that goes on at the end, which most people are fine with, aside from the vegans. But there's not really a good substitute for anchovies flavor-wise. They're very concentrated umami flavor, and they're also quite a lot of the salt that's in this recipe. Oh, I need the scraper for that. I used all of my regular spatulas. Gnocchi was fun, and it wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. It was a little bit time-consuming, and I was a little bit too ambitious the first time, in that I tried to make tricolor. But it was fun, and it was tasty, and it worked. And I would like to try it scaled back a little bit, a less overtly ambitious form of gnocchi. I also want to revisit one of the very first things I made was my own seitan. Seitan, Madison papers. They'll also fry up a little bit, and that came out great. And I feel like that type of thing is the solution for these recipes that I feel don't take enough time. Is that I will make from scratch an element like the pizza. I'll make from scratch an element of it that will take a lot more time. Oops, I'm on the wrong camera. Always this me with the wrong camera. And I even, oops, shoot. No, snap to this camera. I even moved that because I didn't think we were going to use it today. Anchovies, hot pepper, capers. Our gnocchi is floating, which I believe means it's done. We're actually going to fry off the gnocchi directly in our mix here to see if we can't get some little brown edges on it. Garlic goes in the pan. The beauty of this sauce, quote-unquote sauce, is that there's almost no sauce to it. It's all these really strong flavors. But there's not a lot of volume. We're not bulking it up with... That was black pepper. We're not bulking it up with a bunch of tomato or cream or any of those things. it's just a gobs of flavor. And the only bulk element is the pasta itself. Where's my knife? I put the knife over by the sink because it was oily. Take the stems off. You can eat parsley stems, but they're a little bit fibrous. And you inevitably eat some parsley stems because you can never get rid of all the stems. Well, you can. It would be very tedious to get rid of all the stems. Parsley is definitely not a bulking element here either. It is. Oop, I burned my garlic. I was not quick enough. I should have prepped my ingredients in advance. The garlic is brown and crispy now. Let's get those gnocchis in there, though. And I think we might need just a drop more olive oil. To remobilize some of the crusty bits that formed. So we boil the gnocchi to ensure that they are cooked through to the middle, but then we're frying them because they naturally have sort of a gummy exterior, which is part of gnocchi. But you can transform that gummy exterior into a not gummy exterior by tossing them in a pan like this. They're a teeny bit spongy, so they will soak up some of our oil, but they also contribute a little bit of starch. Oh, damn it. I left that there too long. There's a little tiny nick in the edge of my spatula because it's plastic handle, hot pan. Shouldn't have done that. I think that's all of our ingredients too. There's no overtly sour element to this. The capers have some vinegar that bring a little bit of sourness. We have pretty much salt, fat, acid, heat. Those are the four from that book called Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. So we've got olive oil, we've got anchovies, we've got salt from the anchovies and the capers, we've got acid from the capers, we've got heat from the red pepper and the black pepper, we've got fat from the anchovies and the olive oil. The only thing that's missing flavor-wise is a sweet element, and in this case, we're using sweet potato gnocchi, so we've got a naturally sweet note in there. So this should be a fully balanced flavor profile. We've also got generous amount of umami coming in from the anchovies, and even more coming in at the end from the Parmesan cheese that has not yet been added. Let me get out a plate. This is just about done. Told you, this doesn't take hardly any time at all. Plate it up. Nice little tasty meal. The quantity is the ease of preparation, the basicness of the ingredients, and the pretty easy task of making just a small quantity is what contributes to this being midnight pasta. You wake up at midnight in Italy and you're hungry and you want something quick. This, because you wake up in Italy and you're hungry, all of these ingredients are typically, I'm not going to say universally, but typically easily to hand. Parsley is growing right outside in the garden. Everything else is some manner of preserved thing, because it's dried peppers, it's dried black peppers, it's salted, oiled anchovies, it's pickled capers, and it's Parmesan cheese. The only fresh ingredient, and the pasta is they've been making dried pasta for ages, so you grab some dried pasta. The parsley is the only fresh ingredient, and frankly, because it's cooked down parsley, you could use dried parsley in that as well, or even another herb to. Oh, and garlic. I forgot about the garlic. How could I forget about garlic? Uh, Garlic is also one of those typical fresh things. I'll give this a taste, but and tell you about it. But I know exactly what this tastes like. But I'll give it a taste for anyways. I'll grab one. Mm. It's pungent, and the flavors. The beauty of this is it's got all these very strong flavors, and yes, they are all sort of competing with each other, but they're all quite strong. They all rush out at you. So you get the strong Parmesan cheese, the strong umami of the anchovies, the saltiness. I, of course, added 3 cloves of garlic to this tiny bowl, so quite a lot of garlic flavor. Mm. I love this, and it's so quick. One of my favorite quick meals. Midnight pasta. And the sweet potato gnocchi actually are an excellent complement to this strongly flavored sauce because they have a pretty mild, faintly sweet flavor, and they're also quite dense. So this strong sauce, while they don't pick it up, they don't pick the sauce up super well the way a something that's got more ridges or cavities would. The bulk of them complements the strong flavors of the sauce quite well. Mm. Okay. I'll take one last peek. Mm. Join me, won't you, on the bonus cam that's picking up all my weird, terrible hair wispies. We'll take one last peek. Hey, Bookwoman, welcome in. Good timing. There they are. I don't know if you can see. That one is firming up very, very nicely. The coffee one is also firming up actually quite a bit. Let's try the almond one, which I can't quite get my finger in between the thing. They're still too soft. They're still all too soft, but they are definitely coming along well, and I could probably get to them within the hour if I wanted to. But the constraints of physics and the constraints of me not wanting to make this, I suppose I could literally just make this 4-hour show, kill 2 more hours, and then assemble this. But I think it might be wiser to let them properly fully set. And then do the assembly. Because as I mentioned, the no churn ice cream is less stable than a churned ice cream with egg. And thus, once I pull it out of there and start trying to assemble it, it's going to try to melt very quickly. So, for safety's sake, they should probably be pretty hard before I get to that stage, which is going to be another probably 2 hours. So, I'm going to wrap us up. And in lieu of waiting 2 hours and finding things to kill time, because I wasn't planning for that, I was hopeful that maybe they would set enough to get them out of there soft and very quickly put them together and then chuck them back in the freezer. I don't think we're going to get to that stage. That was the hope, but I don't think we're there. So I'm going to instead thank everyone for showing up. Thank Felix for renewing their Prime sub. If you're watching now and you're not subbed with, if you phrase that correctly, if you've got Amazon Prime, you may or may not know it has given you a free sub here on Twitch to the channel of your choice. You just have to renew it monthly. No extra charge to you because you already paid for it. It's part of your Amazon Prime, and you may as well use it here. Why not? You get to access to all these fun emotes that we finally got all of them. They finally approved all of my emotes. I'm so happy. But yeah, I am going to wrap us up because there are more events. I'll have to come back later in the day for a quick assembly on that. Maybe we'll film it. Who knows? Who even actually knows? Wow, there is no one live right now on my list. Literally 0 people. Huh. That's unusual. Let's open up Twitch fully. And go, oh, hey, here's somebody doing. Okay. I know where I'm going to raid. We're going to go raid Maria, who is doing a food and drink stream right now. Maria normally plays games and does cosplay, but right now she is doing, looks like pizza? I'm not sure. Again, I don't have sound right now, so I can't hear what she's doing. Oops, I clicked. Well.
Hello? Hey, Jovial, thanks for the raid, hi!